Hello, everybody. I'm Fausto Artico, Global Head of Innovation and Data Science at GSK. I have multiple masters, multiple PhDs. I worked for 8 years in the US, specifically in Orange County, Silicon Valley at NVIDIA Corporation, IBM TJ Watson Research Center in New York, where I also work on sensitive stuff for the US government, and for the last 8 years in London for GSK. So my background is the one of a mathematician and a computer scientist that for the last 8 years also moved and essentially transitioned to business. I created many products and services from scratch inside organizations and new departments and functions. Always work in deep tech. Recently is more in biotech than other things like data science, high performance computing, supercomputing, and so on. But what I love is also that I got a lot of exposure and I have a lot of fractional roles and consultancy roles outside GSK that allow me to further expand my business acumen, in addition to the many long-year expensive certification at the MIT. I'm an alumnus, Northwestern Kellogg, University of California, Berkeley, Columbia. So as you can see, and what I would like to speak with you today, I have a very holistic view, an hybrid between engineering, deep tech, and business and culture, transformation, leadership, and so on, that can be beneficial for you as founders. Because what I found is that many times people are maybe very strong from the technological point of view because they are fresh PhDs or they work in some sectors for some time, but are completely miss the mark in understanding the complexity of the ecosystems in which they need to operate. And this happens specifically with young people that do not work in big, complex organizations. But even for people that have a long and incredible expertise, for example, in a sector like energy, because technology is entering in many different ways our lives, and even more importantly, because the frontier technologies, so the convergence of different technologies is going to be and generate groundbreaking results, is important essentially for you as young founders, even more to understand all those kind of complex non-linear dynamics in those kind of ecosystems. If you want to create something that is solid, robust, defensible, scalable, and so on. So where we can start, I can give you a flavor of what we can do together at the same time, add value for you, no matter if you come with me, you want to do it on your own, or you go with something else, that I found is important. For example, if your team is too homogeneous, that is not good for investors. They don't like that. They want a variety because they know there are many different parts in a business. If you are a solo investor, there are some investors that simply do not want to fund you. And, there is even a lot of discrimination if you're just a woman. So it's better if you go to some investors than others. There are a lot of situations. It's like a marriage because the investor essentially is going to stay with you for quite a while, between 3 and 7 years probably. And if you want my advice, one of the things that I can already tell you right now is don't take money, even if money is important, if essentially you don't feel well about the investor. That is extremely important. The other point is, are you sure that you need money? Can you bootstrap your company? There are ways that we can explore from that point of view, or if effectively you need money because you're maybe in a capital intensive sector, we can try to put you in touch with the right people in such a way that essentially you are going to maximize the probability for you to find a friend and not just a person that is giving you money. Do you know what several venture capitalists told me in Silicon Valley? Because, for the simple fact that I work for big companies, I need to create partnership ecosystems. So I have a lot of suppliers, vendors, venture capitalists that try to sell me things. The venture capitalists essentially all told me during the years, if they come, the founders, and ask for money, we give them advice. If they come to ask for advice, we give them money. So keep that in mind. That is a way to say that you cannot lose time in trying to sell your company. Is way better to invest time in trying to be curious and try to pitch your idea, but understand what other people can add to your idea, because that allows you to create a much more holistic plan on how essentially you can reach product market fit. And after, if you need to work on how you need to scale up, yes, probably at that point you really need the money to go fast, but you do that only after you have got product market fit and some traction. Those are some of the examples of what I can think we can do together. There are a lot of things in just the team composition and how the team approach investors. There are many others related to the product, right? And this has more to do with competitors. And many times people are completely miss the mark because they try to find direct competitors. But if you want to know the truth from all what I saw in my life, the biggest challenge are indirect competitors, and especially to fight the status quo for a lot of different reasons, because maybe a company has a lot of legacy systems and you solve the problem from the technical point of view, but in a way that cannot be integrated in their systems. That is an example. Another example is that you try to create a solution that owns end-to-end the whole pipeline, and that pipeline is too long and you do not understand that. Typical example is if you are in drug discovery, you will never have the capacity to run clinical trials. You will never have the capacity to manufacture and distribute the drug. And even more, many times, maybe you think that you can own the IP of the drug, and instead companies do not want that. They want to own the IP and they just want to pay for your services. Those are just some of the many possible examples. I have examples in data science. I have examples in quantum computing. I have examples. Let's take quantum computing, right? Quantum computing, no matter how small you are, you need big money. So, for example, I was helping a dropout from Stanford that after he finished the bachelor, and a PhD from East Europe in figuring out how to create and spin up a company. It went well. In 6 months of work, we were able to raise $4.5 million, but that required thought. So, for example, not go on the hardware because it's impossible. You will need hundreds of millions. So let's focus on the software. Even if you work on the software side, where you position yourself, how you position yourself. Okay, let's do compression, for example. Why? And here I explained them a lot of things in the ecosystem and how, most importantly, those things are applicable across all the verticals and all the sectors, right? So that if later we find more easily to create connections for energy, we work in the energy sector. If in pharma, we work in the pharma sector, but we create some kind of cross-functional capabilities, positioning ourselves in a way where we know that we have some advantage, and most importantly, we can get some money compared to other initiatives that are more capital intensive. So, you know, there is a lot of work that has nothing to do with the technology, and even if the technology is important, but requires people that have an holistic view and understand really the complexity of the environments in which you need to operate, and I saw many, and can make a big difference in your journey, not only at the start, but also for the scale up and after the maturity phase where you plan for an exit. Another thing that I saw, you need to be coachable, guys. If you are not coachable, or the investors do not perceive you are coachable, they are not going to invest. They don't tell you this, they smile, they keep you around to understand what you are doing, but nothing will come out of that. So that is another advice that I can give to you. You need to be coachable, and you need to be willing to change during the different phases of the journey of your organization, because essentially the skills that are necessary are very different. At the beginning, you need to try to create a solution with whatever is available to you to generate traction. Later in the scale up, you need to start to have somebody that put in place standards so that things can scale much faster, and it's not anymore a Far West with a lot of different tools and capabilities and so on. And after maturity is more for MBA type of people, where essentially the business is already up and running and scale up and is producing constant and replicable revenue in a way that essentially can allow to explore extension of portfolio solutions, new services and products and so on. So as you see, just talking about the team and the phases, we have a lot that can be done. And it's important that you are not and only focus on the technology. And after there is the product, right? As I was telling you, if we want to go back to the product, there are different ways that you can create a product and services targeting different markets, and the size of those markets and how much you can capture of those markets is important. Many times I see people trying to go for something big, and that is often unreasonable. You don't need to copy a Facebook or a Google. Those people did not really design the plan to be so big. It simply happened. They were in the right place at the right time with the right conditions, and they were good, and they found a business model that they tweak, and it worked. But the original plan was not the one that essentially made them to grow as much they were hoping and they are today. So what I'm trying to say, again, there is a way that we can position you working together in such a way that you are going to maximize the probability of some things to happen. And even if today maybe you think that those things will give you A, tomorrow, probably if you are open, they will give you C, and C can be way, way better than A. Okay. Again, another thing, instead of trying to target with reasonable assumptions a market size that is too big, try to target something that is small. I mean, why you want a $1 billion market? Maybe you just need a $100 million market. And you know, the investors have some kind of specific requirements considering the size of the fund and how many checks they can create, and therefore the average size of a check and what they expect for the return on investment. And I'm saying you this, that if you even plan to get and capture a market that is hundreds of millions of dollars big, that could be more than enough for you to be rich, happy, have a different kind of lifestyle, and also for the investors that maybe do not have a big fund but a much smaller fund to invest in you and be happy because essentially they're going to get the return on investment that they want. Even more important, do you think that Google is coming over you if you are targeting a market that is only 100 or few hundred millions dollars big? No, it's too big for them, right? So it's also kind of defense mechanism that you have versus big players that are instead working in much bigger markets. So very counterintuitive, but useful for you to know, especially because VCs are not going to tell you those things. Another thing is, as I was explaining you, the conditions in the market. Timing is incredibly important. I have plenty of examples with groundbreaking solutions in single sector using single technologies, or also frontier technologies, cross-functional sectors capabilities. And they were simply too early, and they could not stand there long enough to have the market to pick up speed. So why I'm telling you this? Because you cannot buy back time in your life. So if you are really enthusiastic about your idea, you also need to figure out if the time is right now, and not get in too early and not get in too late, but something in between, because otherwise you can easily lose 5 years of your life in just waiting and getting a lot of frustrations that have nothing to do with you and your capabilities and your technology, but more about what are the conditions in the market for whatever you are trying to achieve. And finally, there is all the economic and business modeling part that is important, because many times I see rigidity in that, and instead be creative and continue to be open-minded is important for the fact, again, that you don't know how those big complex ecosystems work, and you need some kind of insiders, can be me, can be somebody else, to explain you how things really work for big companies, medium-sized companies, early stages company, if you want to partner with some other startups, because the way of doing business with them is very different. The expectation in compensation and the service level agreement are very different. And even if I know that you would love to go through a big market and maybe acquire a partnership with big companies, that is many times unreasonable for quite some years. And it's way better instead if you reach those kind of big companies through other preferred suppliers that they have and that can use your capabilities because maybe you have a niche solution that is unique and related to your new skills, if you are a PhD or something else, that those companies are happy to explore. And in addition to that, integrating their services in a way that works as a bridge for you to much bigger companies in that way, instead of trying to get a direct approach to those big companies that are going to kill you simply because even if you want to run maybe a simple POC, they're going to send a document that is 80 pages long and is going to make you cringe in reading everything and sign from the side of your legal department. So as you can see, there are a lot of aspects and it's very complex. And the way that you work in different sectors with different technologies is effectively very different. An example, if it's an highly regulated environment, probably there is money, but the cycle times are much longer. You need to be careful how you create a solution because if that solution doesn't work as a greenfield solution or a recommendation system where there is a human in the loop that is going to take a final decision, those companies are not going probably to spend and invest a lot of time in revalidating and requalify the systems with the regulators just because you offer something new. If instead you work in a sector like something that is hospitality or organizing vacations, you have much more freedom there, right? So effectively there, if you go more on the personalization side of things, and you are able to create a differentiation point, you don't need to go through long processes or revalidation and requalifications of systems. And don't think that that is a small market. I know plenty of people that are willing to pay plenty of money if you are able to generate for them a unique experience. But that requires a lot of personalization. So the name of the game is very, very different. And always in that kind of environment, there are opportunities where essentially you can create probably a whole range of products and services to not leave money on the table, so that if you are going to sell some kind of experience to a sheikh in Arabia, because he or she has plenty of money, she can pay you much more than a person in Europe for a similar kind of experience. This doesn't happen, for example, in sectors like drug discovery. You create a drug, it's a blockbuster drug. You don't ask to a person to pay 1 million for that drug and to another 10K. There is a level fixed price for the treatment, and that is what it is. So think in this kind of term. A smaller number of people that could be your customers doesn't always mean very little money, number one. Number two, not all the customers are equal. So if you find a way to create a whole range of products and services, you don't leave money on the table. Number three, different type of industries have different kind of way of doing things, and that is important in how you approach the companies in the industry and what are the expectations to create a deal, how you start to work with them, and so on. Other example, I saw many of you trying to create a product and service that they assume is great and spend plenty of time and money just to find out that nobody wants that product and service. I think there is a psychological barrier that we need always to work through. And that barrier is essentially to not be in front of the keyboard, but much more go out in the market and try to put something in front of people, try to find somebody that want to explore some kind of opportunities and just initially build a customized solution for that customer, and after another and another. And even if I know that that could be challenging for maintenance, that allow us at least to gather first market data and try to find similarities across those customers. And after, during consolidation phase, when we try to reach a really product market fit, we drop some customers that are too demanding and for which the margins are too small. And we focus on the customers that we like to work with and are giving us good money because those are our ideal customers, for example, for that phase of growth, and would allow us to refocus our resources and scale much faster than instead the customers that are difficult to satisfy and have very low margin. So why I'm telling you this, because I know firsthand as an engineer that we have a tendency to create something marvelous and incredible. And instead, it would be way better for us to explore the market, reach out to people. And I have plenty of connections if you want to explore that opportunity with me on other people in the network of Wholesale Investors or your friends. But do it. Do it because it saves you a lot of headaches. Many times I see founders assuming that things need to be done in a specific way when instead they should start to list the assumptions that they are making for the thing that they want to create and test the assumptions one-to-one without creating the thing that they want to try to create, and try to figure out, oh, how can I test this assumption that I was making and that will make possible essentially to create a strong business plan for the thing that I want to do in the fastest and cheapest possible way. And there is a whole aspect there from the creativity point of view, and I'm Italian, I love that, where you can create mock-ups, you can do so many things just to try in the fastest and cheapest possible way to test those assumptions, to verify what is true and what is not true, and essentially make you comfortable to say, oh, okay, we validated the assumptions that we were making to create this product. 8 out of 10 came back. I think there is momentum, and I think the timing is right in the market. I have a good feeling. Let's really build it, even before starting to build, okay? Remember that. So those are all examples of things that I wanted to bring to your attention, because I'm sure that from what my experience is, many of those things are often overlooked. I have a whole framework that we can use. I have plenty of fractional roles, strategic advisory roles from hedge funds to work on data, multiple industries. For me, tech is not the problem. Where I would like to help you, because I think that you are strong in tech, is to better navigate this kind of other environment so that you can be positioned in the best possible way and maximize the probability, essentially, to first find a way to find product market fit and later scale up. And when you are in maturity stage, we can give the company to somebody else and create a new one. Or you can continue to run it forever, or you can have an exit and start something else and maybe become an investor and an angel if that is what you want to do. So yes, I think we went on for almost 20 minutes. I know that probably you have some questions that Hugo was collecting, and I'm very happy to help you in any kind of possible way. And the first and easiest possible way that we can have is you reach out to me. We start to know each other. For me, it's important to see if we like each other. If I'm not a good fit, I can put in touch with somebody else. If I'm a good fit, we continue to explore whatever you need step by step and see essentially how we can grow that kind of relationship in a way that is fulfilling for you and also fulfilling for me. Thank you very much.
Fausto, thank you very much for that. So I have a couple of questions here that I'd like to go through with you. First of all, so for companies that are maybe not developing emergent technologies, but would rather want to harness the potential of emergent technologies, how should they go about identifying them and finding whether there's a good fit for what they're trying to build?
Okay. That is what is happening with many startups. Things, for example, in generative AI space, they don't want to create a new model. They want to use existing capabilities and create some services around those kind of capabilities that are using in the back end.
Yeah.
Market research is extremely important, and you need to have an idea about some of the trends. But why I'm saying that market research is more important? Market research is more important for the concept I was explaining before about timing. You need to be comfortable somehow that you have an idea, and you need to test this idea And the way of testing this idea doesn't really start with the technology first. Start in understanding what is the situation in the market and which could be your ideal customers. That is the first thing that you really need to evaluate and assess. After you have done that, I have examples where ideally the best technology was technology X, but because the composition of the team was such that at the moment they did not have expertise in technology X, they could develop a solution with technology Y and Z. So the ideal situation changes many times. And that is not only due to what are the skills in the team and therefore what they know better, considering that the problem can be solved with a product and service in many different ways, but also because data is extremely important. A lot of those technologies are working with data. So the data that you have available or you can collect is what you need to work with. And that determines many times the type of technologies that you can use. And in addition to that, the composition of the team, if you cannot pull in the right people because maybe the data technology will be generative AI, but it's not possible, determine which kind of alternative ways you can at least start to generate a revenue and traction in a way that allows you to pull in money first and after maybe redesign the software stack with a different technology as the company grow. My advice, don't spend too much time in trying to bring somebody in the team that have an expertise with everything. If it's not me or you cannot find somebody like me, try more to figure out a way with whatever you have available, a situation to generate traction. That is what you really need to do, because traction is very appealing for an investor. Is proving essentially that there is somebody willing to pay money and therefore a potential for growth. And because valuations of companies are working on projected growth, plus some kind of multipliers considering different techniques, is very different if you go to talk with an investor. You say, I have an idea, but still not client, or I have clients and this is my revenue per month, is 10K. Is very, very different way to negotiate opportunities. If in addition to that, you really want to understand how to pick an emerging technology or what technology could be right, you really need to go to talk with different experts and try to figure out, asking them why the technology that they are expert into essentially could be a good fit for what you are trying to do. And again, try to check for similarities in their answers or diversion points. And don't always think that if they answer in very different ways, that is bad. There could be some great opportunities there for you if you really understand how the complex ecosystem works, and therefore you can develop a thesis, even if that requires time, that is making you think that you can develop an edge. And typical examples, I have friends that are working in industries that are not sexy at all, for things that nobody wants to do. And they position themselves in such a way that are making tons of money, and nobody knows about them simply because it's not chic, but they knew things that was allowing them to create an edge. Essentially a competitive advantage that is easy to defend for things that nobody else wants to do. So I don't know the kind of person that you are, right? You can even create something new with an emerging technology, or you can restructure a sector, or you can just try to copy what somebody else is doing with some tweaks, right? There are many examples in life where it was not important to be first, but have already some platform and product and services there, and just further refine them and be able to reach the market in different ways. So again, considering your skill set, you have different ways of doing things, and using the right technology is only one. And if you are uncomfortable there, just ask to a lot of experts and see what the experts are answering back, so that you can create a kind of consistent picture in your mind.
Okay. Well, I think that gives a lot of food for thought for founders. Definitely. I think on the flip side, let's maybe talk about the companies developing the frontier technologies. What are some common pitfalls that startups face when building these kind of frontier technologies, and how can they be generally avoided?
Right. So there are plenty of people that are really strong from the tech point of view. But if you talk about frontier technologies, you really need to be at the cutting edge. So you have PhDs, you have people that really went deep at the frontier and extended that frontier during the PhD or so on. What is happening is that those people really can create amazing capabilities, but those capabilities should live in a completely greenfield system. That is the best option to avoid pitfalls. If you can create something that can be a greenfield system and provide services, and I found that possible if you essentially create recommendation systems so that you don't need really to integrate them with a lot of others and automate things in a way that is fully interconnected, that can work. But the reality of the situation is that many times in life, you need to really have a lot of things to do with legacy systems that you cannot really change or change only partially. And that is where I see the pitfall with many new founders. They try to create a new thing. They think that thing can be integrated and embedded easily in existing legacy ecosystem, and that is not true. And it's not their fault. It's simply the fact that they maybe never worked in very complex companies because they are fresh PhDs or essentially they have an approach to life that is not going to work. I can give you some examples. The system where your product and service lives is way more complex than just technology. For example, if you need to produce a new drug, you are going to have the legal department of the pharma company telling you that they need to own the IP. Or there are some challenges in how you need to integrate your system in their existing pipelines because different companies have different pipelines. In addition to that, you have challenges on how you can create the business plan because those companies are not allowing you, for example, to try to discover a drug with them, but also with other people and other companies. They want to have a kind of exclusivity. So you are locked in if you want to go with a big player. And therefore, the business model and the contract is such that they say, we give you 10 millions now. If after phase 1 you succeed, we give you 20 millions and we help with phase 2. If after phase 2 you succeed, we give you 100 millions. And if also phase 3 succeed, you need to give us your company for £500 million. So it's a kind of long-term goal with those kind of big companies. And there are other situations where maybe it's not so complex, but essentially you risk to overlook a lot of aspects because you do not work in those kind of complex environments that are very multifaceted and need to be really designed in the systems from day one. Those are the mistakes that I often see happening with founders.
Yeah, I think those are some very good pieces of advice. Not that I'm developing frontier technology, but I can already see what you're talking about. Look, further down the evolution of a company, right? So let's move on from the pitfalls. What do you believe are the key indicators that a startup involved with emerging frontier technologies is ready to scale?
Oh, okay. So it's traction. I mean, the moment that you have traction, and I'm not saying, yeah, I see this many times. I see, oh, maybe you are young and smart, and you pick up somebody coming from big companies. And those people have some kind of friends in some places that can fund the original development and can buy your product. But after that, even if you spend 3 to 5 years, they drive their market and there is really nobody else that wants to buy your product and service. Don't go through that path if you can avoid it, right? Try to have a mixture between friends giving you money to develop the product, but also reaching out to new clients just to assess the situation in the market. Because if effectively the market and not the friends are going to buy from you, you can have an idea of so many things. What are the people that you want to work with? Who are the people that are more enthusiastic and why? And that allows really for you to tweak and develop a product till you reach product market fit and be in a solid situation where essentially you can scale up. Because let's be honest, if you do not have product market fit, and or that kind of product market fit is not solid, giving you more money is not making things better. It's going just to shoot you up like a rocket and after crash down one day in a very strange and weird way. So reliable, healthy growth is more important. And to have that kind of healthy growth, you need to de-risk some things first and have product market fit in a way that is showing you that effectively there are people that you do not know that are interested in your product and service, that are paying money and are part of a market that is big enough to capture. At that point, you can really think, let's grow. And let's grow as quickly as possible to capture as much as possible of that market. And if you don't have enough revenue to funnel and essentially accelerate that growth, you can go to very strong hands that can give you a lot of money to skyrocket that kind of growth that will continue even later up to saturation. And when you have saturation, you don't crash down because you are talking with friends, but you stay stable. You can start to think how to further extend the portfolio with additional products and services in a market that is near enough to yours to capture clients that are going to pay new money, to generate new revenue streams, and therefore continue to grow your company.
Fantastic. Great. And now moving on to the next part of that evolution, and we'll keep doing that until the end. What are the technical challenges startups face when scaling? So once they've gotten that traction, when they've started scaling, now they're scaling, what are critical technological challenges and how can they be addressed or mitigated before they even pop up?
Right. So there is this kind of utopian dream that you can create the product and the systems right from day one. It is not true. It's much more like you start to jog, and as you jog, you build a skateboard, and after you are on the skateboard, and after as you do that, you build a bicycle, you build a car, and so on. And this is a way to say that speed is important in the initial phases because time is important and money is very little. And you need essentially to be able to change several things, and that creates some kind of chaos from the infrastructure point of view. But that is fine. When you start to grow, if you continue to use that kind of model, things is really going to become so chaotic that everything is going to slow down. Inefficiencies are going to consume a lot of money. You are not really going to scale up in a feasible way. What you need to do in that phase is essentially is to start to create standard and processes that allow you essentially to do things in a more unified way. And you need to drop some clients, you need to keep some others. You need essentially to do some pruning and restructure the system. And what that really implies is that you have not one company, you have two companies. Company that is running the old product and service in the old way to bring in revenue.
Yeah.
You start to move some of those people to a new kind of company and need to create a new systems just to run the old product and services, but in a more reliable and scalable way. And after you continue to move more and more people from the old company to the new company that is creating this system, and essentially it is inevitable that you are going to cannibalize the old company with the old product and service, and you create a new one. And you continue through those kind of phases as you continue to grow, because I can guarantee you that if you are a 10 billion company, you run things in a very different way than if you are a startups.
Yeah.
And therefore, there is this kind of Phoenix event where you die in one way and you reborn in another, going through transitions, always with the people that you have, if they have the right skill set, to create systems that allow you to run things in a more predictable and robust way.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then, we talked about those two kinds of companies within one. Now, how should startups approach, when they're not startups anymore now, they're scale-ups. How should scale-ups approach the integration of new technologies into existing systems? Because you mentioned earlier that when you're building a new technology with PhD student, you should build it on a greenfield system, right? But when you build new technologies that are built on existing ones, once you grow the company, how should those be integrated?
Okay. Now, it is very different considering the type of technology. Some technology are much more closed than others. You are not going to design a new quantum chip from the hardware point of view. You need to use what is available there. And that implies some kind of vendor lock-in is inevitable. But there is a lot of things that you can do from the software side where instead you have plenty of freedom. So this is my way to say it depends from case to case. My experience essentially is that if you start with a greenfield system,
Yeah.
you need to grow quickly enough to be able to create an ecosystem.
Okay.
And essentially, that ecosystem needs to be strong enough such that if your client needs to switch to your ecosystem, you can lock them in, but the switching cost needs to be superseded by all the value that you can add. That has to be 10x compared to what I have today. That is what essentially a frontier kind of solution with many technologies can do. If you don't want to do that, you start with a greenfield system, like a recommendation system, but later you want to start to work on smaller part of a pipeline of other companies because you know that doing things in a different way, you can integrate those small pieces in their ecosystem.